Okay, now we're going to look at the System tab. In this section, we're going to look at the system. In the system, we have 4 tabs: Host, Logical Volume, RAID, and Enclosure. We'll begin by looking at Host. In the Host section, we define those servers which are going to have access to the storage array. In our example here, we have 4 hosts defined: Mail Server 1, Accounts, SQL Server, and Production. Mail Server 1 has been defined as a SAS Fibre Channel type connection, as well as SQL Server, and Accounts and Production 1 are 2 servers that are going to access the array using a network connection, such as iSCSI or CIFS. If we wish to add another server and give it rights to access the storage array, we simply click on the Add button, select whether that server is going to be SAS Fibre Channel or network. So we look here at an example of a network. We give it a name, such as File Server 1. We give it a password. And confirm the password. The green light will go on, and now that is a new registered user of the storage array. Okay, having created the various hosts that can access the system, the next tab to look at is RAID. In the RAID section, we simply create a RAID by clicking on the Add button, giving the RAID a name, selecting its quality of service, and the various other parameters belonging to the RAID, perhaps the most important being the RAID level, 0, 1, 5, or 6. In this example, we'll choose RAID level 0. Once having selected the RAID, we then need to select the disks that are going to be a member of that RAID. I'll simply organize my disks in terms of size here, and now I will start selecting disks I want to add to the RAID. Once having selected the disk, we move on to the next section, which is to decide how I want those disks organized. I can have them organized as 8x1 or 4x2. This is the rows and columns of how the disks will be associated in the RAID. This is now my summary of having made my selection. I simply create the RAID and wait for it to go online. So this RAID has now been created. I can now build logical volumes on top of this RAID. Having created a RAID, the next step is to create a logical volume. Simply click on the Logical Volume tab, Add, and now we are ready to add another logical volume. This is perhaps one of the more complex things that has to be done on the storage array. First step is to give it a name, LV1, and pick a size. I'll pick 50 gigabytes. And I'm going to enable the thin provisioning feature for this volume. That means that even though my size is 50 gigabytes, I do not have to provision all of the storage, all of that 50 gigabytes initially. I'm also going to enable another feature that's quite useful for our volumes, which is bandwidth throttling. This allows me to say that anybody who accesses this volume cannot access it at a bandwidth greater than 50 megabytes per second. You can choose anything from 1 to 200 megabytes per second as your bandwidth throttle. You can also select the I/O throttle. So, having configured my volume, I now need to allocate some storage from a RAID. So, the volume is 50 gigabytes. I'll just allocate 20 from this RAID. Move to the next step. And because the volume is thin provisioned, it's now requesting me to decide, once I have used up that initial 20 gigs, how will the next tranche of storage be allocated. So I'm going to say, when we get to 75% of the previously allocated storage, allocate another 30 gigs. Now, once having set up that part of the volume, I need to decide where is the volume going to be exported. I can export it in this configuration to a SAS port, Ethernet ports 0 or Ethernet port 1. I'm going to, in this example, choose Ethernet port 1. And having done that, I need to decide whether I want to export it as either iSCSI or CIFS. I'll use CIFS. I'll use iSCSI, and I'll move on to the next step. So now we see from our previous example of having configured hosts that I can now say that this volume should be seen by one or more servers that are network servers. In this case, I'm going to say it can be seen by accounts and file server 1. And now I'm ready to create my logical volume. So this logical volume is a thin provisioned 50 gig volume that currently has 20 gig reserved. It's built on a RAID with RAID level 0, and it has been exported across iSCSI to 2 servers. My logical volume has now been created successfully. If I then want to view my logical volume, I can view it. I can see that it is 50 gigs. It has 20 gigs allocated. If I want to view which hosts have been mapped to, I can see them in this view. If I want to see what RAIDs it's built on, I just click on the view RAIDs, and I can see that it's built on RAID 1, and that RAID 1 is online and good. And if I want to see what ports it's exported on, I can see that it's exported on an Ethernet port. Finally, if I want to view the enclosure details, I simply click on the Enclosure tab and then view the enclosure that I'm currently connected to. And I have a front view and a back view. The front view allows me to see which disks are currently populated and to view what are the disk details of that disk that's currently being used. Or I can view the entire back of the enclosure and see what's the current PSU fan, temperature, voltage, or current readings. So for every enclosure that MPStackware is running on, there is a different front and back view, and this is usually customized for the particular array that you're running on.